Today, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite games of all time. These aren't only my favorite games, but some of the best of all time. Let's get into it. Hi, welcome to Pixel Codex. My name is Remington Keller. If you're new here, I'm going to help you rediscover your childhood love of gaming and find out about all the games you missed out over the years and the best way to play them today. Number 5, Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus, for me, is easily one of the top 2 best games on the PS2. When this came out, I was in senior year of college and I played it for that entire Christmas break. The whole game is essentially 12 giant boss fights. Something happens, your girlfriend gets cursed and put to sleep, and you basically, the only way to save her is going around and killing these giant colossi. And to kill them, you basically have to climb up their huge bodies, find their weak points, and then stab them as they're trying to throw you off and shake you. It's crazy. And when you kill them, you actually feel bad because it's this giant majestic creature that's lived for how many years, who didn't do anything to you, but you have to save your girlfriend's life. So while playing the game, you get this real sense of melancholy because you're forced to do something that you really don't want to do. And half the fun of the game is actually finding and getting to these creatures. You have to ride around to get to them. There's huge open fields, giant mountains, enormous bridges that go for miles. Easily some of the best environments on the PlayStation 2. Now, there's no special attacks, no special abilities. It's basically you, a guy with a sword, and your trusty horse riding around trying to take down these creatures to save the love of your life. That's it, the whole game. You basically got to use what you got. Number 4. As a kid, I was all about the Ninja Turtles. I had the toys, watched the cartoons, loved the movie, ate the cereal. So when they finally brought out video games of the Ninja Turtles, I was so pumped. And by far, the best video game is Turtles in Time. I remember when I first saw this in the arcade as a kid, it blew my mind. I loved the first arcade game, but seeing this, you get the Ninja Turtles, you're going through the past, you're throwing foot soldiers through the screen. It was incredible. Initially, I had a hard time choosing between this and Streets of Rage 2, but I had to give it to the Turtles. Me and my brother used to play this constantly on Super Nintendo. This is one of the best arcade ports of all time. The graphics fantastic, music incredible, and the beat 'em up gameplay is just awesome. I honestly think the Super Nintendo version is better. It has cooler bosses. They put in Slash, who's my personal favorite. It was essentially arcade perfect. They switched around a few bosses and changed some of the levels, but honestly, I think it improves the game. This is one of the best co-op games of all time, and my favorite beat 'em up. Alright, we're down to the top 3. For me, it came down between this and Final Fantasy VI, but I have to pick one, so I'm going with Chrono Trigger. It is one of the best soundtracks on the Super Nintendo, amazing graphics. They took a battle system, completely streamlined it, made it fun to play. You can do combos with your party members, you team up to do super attacks. It was fantastic. Chrono Trigger was made by a dream team of 3 developers. The guy who made Final Fantasy, the guy who made Dragon Quest, and the artist who created Dragon Ball Z. If that's not going to make an amazing game, then I don't know what is. The plot for the game was crazy. The characters are great. You have to time travel all around. It's got what seemed like to me 30 different endings, and for me, by far, it's my favorite RPG. If you're only going to play one RPG, honestly, I'd start with Chrono Trigger. Number 2 for me is Metal Gear Solid 3. The Metal Gear series is one of my favorites of all time, but I had to just pick one, and I'm going with Metal Gear Solid 3. The original on the PlayStation showed how you could really have a cinematic experience in video games. Number 2 just took it to the next level. Incredible graphics, great soundtrack, amazing gameplay. The original was easily top 3 favorite PS1 games for me. But honestly, out of the original 3, I've got to go with the third one. It improves on everything from the previous games and brings it to a whole new level. So it's basically a prequel, and it takes place during the 1960s during the Cold War. You play as Big Boss, who was basically the predecessor to Solid Snake, and you're going around trying to investigate these reports of something called the Shagohod, which is basically a prototype to the first Metal Gear. It takes everything you liked about the first 2 and expands on them. Now as you're sneaking around, you have to find and choose what types of camouflage to use. You scrounge around for items and food. If you eat the wrong thing, you'll get sick. And it has some of the best boss fights ever made. What's crazy about the boss fights in this game is there's so many different options and ways to do what you want. There's this one that's a sniper fight with this guy called the End. He's basically this 100-year-old sniper, and one of the ways you can beat him is you basically just wait. And if you wait long enough, and you like sleep and save, you'll come back. He's died of old age. There's also this crazy chase scene with a Shagohog, like this giant mech just barreling through trees, busting through walls. It's awesome. On top of all these incredible boss fights, it's got, in my opinion, the best final boss fight of all time. It takes place in this crazy field of flowers, and it's such an emotional payoff to an already incredible game. Finally gotten to number 1. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is my favorite game of all time. A lot of people will pick Ocarina of Time or even Breath of the Wild from a year or two ago, but in my mind it was and always will be Link to the Past. It was released about 6 months after the Super Nintendo came out, and I was waiting for it ever since I saw an announcement for it in Nintendo Power. There were tons of games before that had great environments, but this was the first one that really felt immersive to me. It has one of the most atmospheric openings of all time. You wake up in the middle of the night during a rainstorm and your uncle's missing. So Link goes out to find him, and he discovers him in the sewers of Hyrule Castle, and the adventure just goes on from there. The crazy thing about this game is you get to one point in the beginning where you've already gone through the world, you've beaten these 3 palaces, you've gotten these 3 items, and you think you're going to save the princess. So you're going through Hyrule Castle, you get to this boss battle, you fight this evil wizard, and honestly, when I was playing this, I thought I was at the end of the game. And so you beat the guy, and it turns out there's a whole new world to explore. There's an entirely dark version of everything you played through, 8 more dungeons. It's crazy. I would have been happy if it ended right there, and it just blew my mind. The music is classic, the graphics are great, and the gameplay basically set the standard for every Zelda game to follow from that point. They would take its principles and adapt it to 3D, but to me, the classic always was and will be the best. If you want to learn about some great new games, check out this video over here on the best games coming out for the PlayStation 5. There's a ton of good stuff coming out, so check it out. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, have a good one. You have to kill these 12 giant Colossuses. Colossi. Colossus.